So scientists just sequenced the DNA of two 7,000-year-old mummies they found right in the middle of the Sahara Desert. And the results, well, they're rewriting everything we thought we knew about human history. What they uncovered is almost unbelievable.
You just heard from one of the top archaeogeneticists on the planet. And that's the kind of thing you say when a discovery is so big, so shocking, it makes you question everything. To really get why he was so stunned, we have to start with the mystery itself.
All right, so this whole story kicks off where all the best mysteries do, with lab results that just should not be possible.
Let's meet our subjects. They're two women, naturally mummified, who were buried about 7,000 years ago in a place called the Takaroka Rock Shelter, which is in modern-day Libya. Now, what's truly amazing here is that scientists sequenced their entire genomes. I mean, trying to get ancient DNA out of a hot desert is usually a complete non-starter. The heat just destroys it. So this was a huge technical win, and it's what cracked open this whole puzzle.
Now, going in, the expectation was pretty simple. These women lived in North Africa, right? So it just makes sense that their DNA would show really strong connections to the Sub-Saharan African populations living right next door. That was the obvious basic assumption.
That assumption wasn't just wrong, it was absolutely shattered. The mummies carried exactly 0% Sub-Saharan African ancestry. None. Zilch. A result that clean, that absolute, it just doesn't happen. And it immediately created this massive scientific puzzle.
Which leads us to the big question, right? How on earth could a group of people living in Africa for who knows how long be so completely isolated from the folks living right beside them? And the answer gets even crazier when you realize what their world actually looked like.
Yeah, because 7,000 years ago, the Sahara was not the desert you're picturing. And this incredible isolation? It happened in an environment that should have made it completely impossible.
See, they lived during what's called the African Humid Period. For nearly 10,000 years, the Sahara was a green, lush corridor. It was packed with permanent lakes, rivers, we're talking elephants and hippos wandering around. It wasn't a barrier, it was basically a superhighway for people and animals to move around and interact.
And this is the real heart of the paradox. On the one hand, you've got this vibrant, connected world, a perfect place for cultures to mix. But on the other hand, you look at their genes, and it's a total dead end, a complete genetic island, no ties to the south. It just doesn't add up.
So if they weren't related to their neighbors, then who were they? Well, the answer sent researchers tumbling back in time, not by a few thousand years, but by tens of thousands of years.
It turns out their closest relatives were hunter-gatherers from a cave in Morocco who lived 15,000 years ago. And this wasn't just some random group. This was a deep, ancient North African lineage, one with these faint, old ancestral ties to early European populations. It was a branch of humanity that had been pretty much invisible to science until right now.
Their genetic story, it seems, starts around 50,000 years ago, with ancestors who are part of that first big wave of humans that left Africa. But then, something incredible happened. For the next 43,000 years, while the rest of humanity was spreading, mixing, and evolving all over the world, this lineage just stayed put in North Africa, almost genetically frozen in time. And isolation that long is just unheard of. Johannes Krauss put it perfectly. He said they were like living fossils. And that is exactly what scientists mean by a ghost population. A whole branch of the human family that existed for thousands of years, almost invisible to history, leaving only these faint echoes, until now. But this mind-bending isolation leads to another huge paradox. If they were so totally cut off, how did they learn to farm?
The evidence at the site is crystal clear. The Takarokori people were pastoralists. They were herding animals like sheep and goats that originated in the Near East. They were using pottery styles that came from peoples down in the Nile Valley and Sub-Saharan Africa. They had all the cutting-edge tech of their time. And yet, their DNA shows absolutely no trace of the people who invented it all.
This discovery just completely flips the old model of how civilization spreads. You know, we used to think that for technology to move, people had to move, mixing their genes as they went. But the Takokori mummies prove that's just not the whole story. Ideas can travel even when people stay put. It's like they were trading knowledge, not DNA.
So what finally happened to this unique 50,000-year-old branch of the human family? And what does their existence really mean for the rest of our history?
In the end, it wasn't war or migration that ended their long, long isolation. It was the climate. The African Humid Period ended, and the Sahara started to dry out, turning their green world into sand.
those carefully kept boundaries just collapsed. They were finally forced to merge with the populations around them, and their unique genetic signature just dissolved into the bigger North African gene pool.
Just think about this for a second. The Sahara Desert covers an area about the size of the United States. The Takakuri Rock Shelter is one tiny spot in that massive expanse. If it was hiding a lost human lineage for 50,000 years, just imagine what else is still out there.
What these mummies really prove is that our understanding of the human story is just profoundly incomplete. Entire branches of our family might have lived and thrived and then just disappeared, becoming these ghost populations that we are only now, finally, starting to find.
It leaves us with one final, kind of haunting question. We've found the story of the Takarokuri people. We've rescued it from the dust. But how many other lost chapters of the human story are still out there, just waiting for us under the sand?